Welcome, Fedi Friends, to episode 5 of Fireside Fedi. I'm your host, Ozoned. Fireside Fedi is a show about folks within the Fediverse. You're seeing this, you are a part of the Fediverse. With me today, recorded earlier because I forgot to hit record on the intro. That's why I'm doing this, is Johannes. I found Johannes, I met Johannes when I found out about the FediForum. FediForum is, as they say, the unconference for the people who move the open social web forward. And I want to read Johannes' description on his landing page to explain a bit about him, as I just absolutely loved it and it absolutely reverberated with me personally. Johannes said, "I believe the world is better if people are in control of their own destiny. In technology, that means we need to control our data, freely choose the software we use with our data, and fairly negotiate the terms by which we interact with others, including which data is and isn't shared. Not a fan of overlords in politics and in technology. We're very excited about the opportunities on the resurging open social web, the Fediverse, also facts matter, empathy, inclusion, and opportunity." So Johannes's impressive current list of projects include Dazzle Labs, Fedi Devs, FediForum, Fedi Test, and UBoss, as well as many other previous projects. The video will jump in when Johannes is explaining about who he was growing up, and I apologize for the cut. I'm going to do better on making sure that I hit record at the beginning of the video. Now, enjoy the rest of the interview.
So if you go Reformation as in the Protestant, Lutheran, and so forth, Reformation of the church, they describe themselves to this day as the center of the counter, so the reactionaries against it. So that's about as the background, and so I didn't quite fit into this. Now the second half of my life I've lived in Silicon Valley, which is I think more to my liking.
One goes hand in hand with each other, right? Very conservative and Silicon Valley engineers. Wow, how? So did you always feel like you wanted more, or when you went to uni, all of a sudden you were enamored by this stuff, or how do you go from the complete 180 of that?
Well, I don't know if it's a complete 180, but I've always liked to build stuff. So I'm somebody who loves to do stuff, and even when I carry a management title, I have to try to do something that actually does something real to keep me grounded. I don't like the pie in the sky thing. So when you start building things, what's interesting? Electronic stuff when I grew up was really interesting. So I did a bunch of that stuff. I was, it dates me, but my computer, I actually mostly disassembled the operating system as a teenager to figure out how it works. And so then I went to college to become an electrical engineer. Also, I never had met one really. And went on to that, they did give me a PhD in that. Also, I'm really a software guy. So out of what I've done professionally is really software, not electrical engineering. You should not put me on an EE project. It would end up in a very big disaster. But I'm a software guy.
Oh wow! So, but you're Dr. Johannes then?
Well, yes. I don't think anybody's ever addressed me that way, and I have never had it on a business card. But as sometimes I mention this because I'm also not a big fan of titles, and a lot of people run around with the title in front of their name, meaning I'm important because of a title.
Yes.
And that's not the way I'm thinking about it. And that's why I'm saying that I know very little about electrical engineering. Just the fact that you have a title means very, very little.
But it's so funny because I've met so many folks like yourself, so many very humble folks. There was a woman I worked with when I worked at Red Hat. She had her PhD in plant virology, and no one knew she was a doctorate of that. And my wife, she's going for a doctorate of nurse practitioner. And I told her, I'm going to make sure that they call you doctor. And she's like, nah, it's fine. I was like, I understand where that's coming from, right? Like so many people use it as a point of influence, but you work so hard for that. Like it's also a badge of pride. I won't call you that because that's not what you want to be addressed as, but like I definitely think that we need to get away from that idea that titles are what makes you important, and it should be more about who you are and what you do and accomplish. But totally understand you there.
Well, and given that the Germans are worse about this than the Americans, right? The Americans generally
Really?
do not put the title in front. No, not a German. Is basically it's the replacement for what used to be gentry. You used to be the count of something, and now you are the doctor of something, and that's the same, I think, assumption. So not going there. I'm a first name kind of guy.
Yeah, no, that's how I am too. Like it's about connecting with people. Even calling someone sir. Like I see the term sir as a sign of respect. So whenever I'm talking to someone at work or like a friend or something, I say sir, everyone's like, why are you calling me sir? Like I work for a living because I know some military guys, and it's like it's about a sign of respect. That's all it is, man. I'm not, it's interesting how we tie up these titles though in such more grandiose terms. Seems
true. I have, I think, scared some boyfriends of my daughter when I insisted that there's no sir to be found here.
Nice. So you have a daughter, at least. I now know that. Do you have other kids?
Yeah, I have 3 of them.
You have 3 kids.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Grown, so.
Oh, they're all grown?
Yeah, been around for a while.
Oh wow! Yeah, I'm in my mid 40s, but I still have an 8 and a 5-year-old. I started late in life, but that's better off that way sometimes,
Yeah, it's sort of interesting how this all works. I was just thinking about it. Actually, I was thinking before getting on this call, when did I actually get involved with what today is the Fediverse or the early days, and then this now I think just over 20 years ago. These kinds of things, they have a habit of being suddenly successful out of nowhere after people having worked on it for like 20 years, right? It's some of these things takes the time.
Well, I grew up in the 90s. I can remember exactly the first time I laid my hands on a computer on the internet, and I was just immediately hooked and entranced. In the 90s and up until probably the early 2000s, it was just the Wild West. And then things started becoming centralized. And what I've told people is the Fediverse to me feels like that weird, crazy, wonderful place of the internet of the 90s. Like it's what I envision, right? And that's why I'm so excited to meet folks like you and have these conversations, because I love this. We don't, when on a big social network, I wouldn't, get boosted from anyone, right? Like I'm nobody. But anyway, I'm passionate about this, and it seems like you are as well, because you have multiple projects, right? So the first one I have looks like, and you can, tell me, j12t.org looks like kind of a general information about you.
Just my landing page, basically. It's like, there's people ask me, oh, are you on Telegram, or are you, these kinds of things, and I have had it. I'm just giving them all the same identifier, which is nice and short. And I have some business cards that have a QR code on it. And while nobody likes to take business cards anymore, there's a QR code, and people take their picture and they go to my homepage, and then they can pick what they want to do in terms of how they connect, which I think makes a lot more sense than just negotiation that you have in meetups. It's like, are you on LinkedIn? Or I don't go there. And I don't want to introduce myself as I am on LinkedIn, because I'm me. I don't need LinkedIn to be somebody.
Right.
Right. So it needs to be my presence on the web, not some third party presence on the web. And I think we do all need to, or at least I want to practice, what I preach, which is, being totally on technology.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And something like LinkedIn is so sterile, right? Like you can only post certain information about like your work history. That's not me. That's a facet of me. Like you can put blog posts and stuff like that, but they can always be taken down.
Exactly.
That's not you. And I love this. Why J12T?
Oh, it's like it's a contraction of my name. Just like in software, you sometimes call it,
Okay.
instead of internationalization or localization, you have the first and the last letter, and then it's some numbers in the middle.
Okay. And there's always reasons like UBOS, UBOS. What does UBOS stand for? And I don't even fully understand what it is. I read that it is. It seems kind of like a lock key way to get into building apps. Can you explain UBOS or microboss?
So, what is it? Would you so in terms of pronunciation, Doc Searles, my friend Doc Searles, pointed out you can pronounce this as you boss, as in you are the boss.
Oh, nice.
Which was a good pronunciation for this. I mostly got it because it has an OS in it at the end. It was fairly short and it was available. But it is, I think, not a bad term. But I think before I get into explaining what UBOS is and wants to be, maybe if you don't mind,
no.
I could tell a little bit of how I got into this.
Yeah, please do. Yes,
because a lot of these projects, in a way, are sort of an outgrowth of what I think needs to happen.
Yeah, please dive right in. Yeah.
And so I think for me my entire involvement in this started, I think, just over 20 years ago when there was, think back, there was no iPhone. There was, but it was the heyday of blogging. Right, everybody had a blog at the time, and that was sort of an early version of a user-centric way of interacting with the world. Right, you set up shop somewhere, and you interact with other people. And at the time, we had my company at the time, we had an enterprise customer, and we were building mobile software for healthcare before iPhone. That was a bit of an accomplishment. But one day I visit this customer and I'm watching the physicians in the emergency room who are customers walk around in the emergency room with their devices, doing, never mind what the application did exactly, but I realized as I'm watching them that people were a first-class concept in this application. It wasn't just like medications and lab orders and stuff like that, but who was working on whom and what were they saying? People were first-class concept. And I remember sitting in the traffic jam here on the way back to home, and I'm thinking, I need to augment this application that their people are first-class entity in the system, not just like a little name here and there. So you can interact with them and you know who they are. And so I figured, what's the simplest possible thing I could do? And over a very short amount of time, I came up with this thing called LIDS at the time, for lightweight digital identity, which basically would use the idea of a blog, which is you have a URL you can hand out to people, and put an identity system underneath by putting key pairs behind it. That was the base idea. And it was lightweight because you could build it in an afternoon, basically. And once you have a place on the web that's yours with your URL, and you have key pairs behind it, you can bootstrap a lot of interesting stuff. For example, we can now create a trust relationship between you and me. You have my public key, I have your public key, and now we can communicate, right? So we did a bunch of stuff, including secure messaging from my URL to your URL, peer-to-peer, without any centralized platforms in the middle. I could do secure identity exchange, like I can give you my phone number, but nobody else. In fact, I could give you my phone number in a live phone number or live position without any third party in the middle. So that was the idea and was lit at the time. And in a way, that wasn't decentralized social media the way we thought about it. And I certainly also didn't think of it as decentralized social media. But in a way, you can see what it is. If you look into FediForum today, how does it work? Well, you have this public identifier which you can put into a browser, and then messages go back and forth. And how do we know they come from the right person? Oh, there are some key pairs involved, right? So it sounds very familiar in a way. Now, what I did with Lid, though, at the time was that there was a big movement we built, which turned into the OpenID Foundation and the OpenID movement, which was bigger at the time than it is now, but it's still the most widely deployed, I think, internet identity system. And so I folded it into this because it was a larger initiative, and there's a lot of identity-related activities at the time that were all user-centric. The watchword of the time was user-centric digital identity, meaning that I assert things to you without a third party in the middle. And a lot of the early social media discussions that today are the Fediverse happened in that environment. It started with a context of, I have a blog. Now, how do I interact with other people in a secure manner? Right, and that's where we got OpenID, and we got a bunch of, and there were things like FOF and things like that were around, and that had a great momentum around it. We were so happy at the time when we managed to sign up like AOL supported, Yahoo, and then Google, and it was beautiful. And of course, the whole thing went completely sideways when the centralizers took over, and instead of a nice, beautiful person-to-person system, it became a system where some parties were more equal than others. Is it that zero? And then the entire market essentially sort of had the oxygen that sucked out of it. And that was when we had the tail end of that entire phase. We got sort of the first real traction for decentralized sort of social media, like with Diaspora at the time, for example, and other things around it. Like, Evan built a lot of social media stuff at the time, long before ActivityPub. He was part of the same community. And then the community sort of died out in a way because the opportunity went away because everybody went to Facebook and so forth. And here's the really funny part. As soon as you have this crazy billionaire buying Twitter and doing whatever he's doing with this thing, all of those people come back out of the woodwork. Okay, people I hadn't seen for 10, 15 years talking about this one, coming back out of the woodwork, and we continue the conversation right at the point where we dropped it 10, 15 years ago, or whenever that was, 2010, 12, somewhere around that. Right, so it's a little funny when people say there's this new thing, the Fediverse, and all of us go, well, depending how you look, it is sort of new for a lot of people, and of course there's a generational thing in here, but it goes way back.
So Johannes, I'm gobsmacked because I was like, oh, there's a guy that's running this FediForum thing. That's an unconference. I was like, oh, cool. That'll be cool to talk about. No, you're a father of the Fediverse.
Maybe great grandfathers.
A great grandfather, that's amazing.
Well, not really. Okay, so I'm not taking credit for this one because my work was identity, was not on social media. But it's sort of environment where certain things came out of. Yeah. Right, and I was certainly part of this environment, and and a lot of discussions that, as I said, that we had back in the days are coming back out, and many of the problems that are now identified as new problems are in fact very well-known problems. And
you've been talking about it for 20 years, right? Like you've had time to solve them. Holy cow, that's amazing.
But this is an interesting one because our industry technology has this rotation of being very fast moving, and I don't think this is an accurate description. I think what is happening is that sometimes the circumstances are correct, and then things happen very quickly. But I was completely gobsmacked when I found out that the first description of hypertext was written during World War II.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you look at it and say, okay.
The demonstration to what they call it, the demo to trump all demos or something like that. I love that video. I watched that with my family, they're not technical, and they're like, "What are we watching?" I was like, "The birth of the internet," and they're like, "What?"
In a way,
I was like, "Yeah." And the mouse and a graphical user interface and the mother of all demos, right? That's what it was called.
It was right. That was I think in '68 or some such thing. I don't remember the exact date. Right, and he had been working on this for a while, and Ted Nelson had been working on this in the '60s, but they were really inspired by Vannevar Bush in the 1940s, where he described the hypertext system that was entirely based on microfiche. But to this day, okay, and this is where I'm getting embarrassed on behalf of our industry, to this day, there's a few features he has described in it that we do not have today. particularly the notion of trails. So here we are. It's basically 80 years later, and we're still not there. But so there's
No.
plenty of things that one could just put into practice that one doesn't have to invent that would be useful.
Well, I've obviously not been in the industry as long as you have. I've only been in IT professionally for about 15 years. But as a kid,
Okay.
in the 90s, growing up with technology, I always thought everything was absolutely amazing. But the longer that I've been in, the more that I see that these new technologies that everyone's crazy and excited about, one, already existed in another form. Like the big one I remember when I first started in IT was containers. Oh my God, Linux has containers. And like all these old Solaris guys are like, so we've had those for 20 years. And it's like that. And then this whole decentralization thing. It's like, guys, this is how the internet worked before
Exactly.
all of this. But it really is not about, it really seems like not to be about the innovation, but is humanity ready for, the next step? Right.
And then also, who sees an opportunity to take this technology and turn it into something that benefits them, because the rest hasn't caught up yet, right? So, for example, all of the manipulation that's happening on commercial social media is, from my perspective, mostly because a bunch of people figured out how to do the manipulation, while the people who don't want to do that haven't quite figured out that they need to do something about this. We don't really have the counter movement that looks at this the same way and says, oh, there's an opportunity here to create an social network for truth, for example, as opposed to fake news, right? I mean, we could, if we wanted to, we could say, what are our values? Can we build a social media environment that has those values? And for me, there is, if I had to, like three bold item lists, but for me, we'd like to have social media that encourages the truth rather than fake news, in generally speaking. And I think social media today is very bad at this. It has no mechanisms for really doing this. Community notes is such a band-aid that is really, right. But anyway, so there's truth. One of them. The second one is choice. I don't want to be forced into a particular software environment or in a particular platform in a particular terms of service where I have no way of choosing. So I want to have choice in how this works, which necessarily I think means this decentralization to some extent. And the third thing is I'd like to have a social media environment that encourages empathy as opposed to attacks. Right. And if you look, like social media is in a way, it is built, the way we have social media commercially is built exactly in the opposite way of what I just said. Right. It's
reactionary. Reactionary generates clicks. It keeps you looking, right. It's not there to give you truth. It is there to keep you reacting.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But if you look at this, and then I think one of my criticisms that I have with the Fediverse today is that a lot of the software, not all of it, but a lot of the software is straight copycats of the centralized systems, just now in a decentralized fashion. But if decentralized systems have built in a way that it encourages these kinds of things, even if nobody were to tune the algorithm to that kind of thing, but if you have no mechanism of, for example, really figuring out whether a tweet or a post or something is true or not, or how to provide supporting information for it, we have none of these things. So as long as we copy the platforms, we can only go that far. So for me, what's really exciting now is that we're beginning to see some kind of second generation, decentralized media platforms that try generally new stuff. And what of that is really going to stick, we don't know. But it is much better to go beyond just a copycat.
Well, I love. So I've been on Mastodon, I think, since like 2017. So I guess I'm kind of an old timer as far as helpers of creating the Fediverse go, but I think that having a copycat clone was helpful for people to feel, I know this, I feel safe, I can live here. But I think one of the greatest strengths of the Fediverse is the fact that it's so open. The reason the internet exploded wasn't because it was one company controlling it all and then directing everything. Like anyone can create anything. So the things that people like the most is where they went
Right.
and more masses got there. And now as we see that the internet is, excuse the way I say this, but the way that the internet is kind of being bled dry, the Fediverse is here now. Is we've gotten, I think I just saw on FediDB, which we can never have full accurate numbers, is like 15 million people. Those folks that are passionate and that have the desire and the interest, they can make anything. They can make it for themselves.
Right.
You never know if everyone loves that and it takes off and people love it, or if it's still for them. And that's okay. It could still be for them.
Right. So, the way I think of it is that the reason why the commercial internet happened, or maybe not the commercial internet, but why the internet got this big explosion in the mid-90s is that it was an open network. And the story that I tell is, imagine you're Amazon or you're Jeff Bezos, and you're thinking, oh, there's this network. I could be selling books, online. How am I going to do this? Now, he could have set up an online bookstore inside CompuServe or inside AOL.
Yep.
In fact, they had a whole lot of infrastructure for doing exactly this, right?
Yeah.
But he didn't do that. And if you imagine for a second that he had set up Amazon inside CompuServe or AOL, then you can be quite certain it would not have gone very far. And the reason why is because as soon as he would have really been successful, the platform overlord, AOL or CompuServe, would have squeezed him out, either taking it over or competed with him or taxed him out of existence, right? The fact that he could set up shop without having to have permission for anybody allowed Amazon to become what it has become. And of course, it has gone over to the dark side to a certain extent. But just as a way of innovation, that was only possible in an open network. Now, if you're thinking of social media in a way is actually, before the recent rise of the Fediverse, is even more concentrated and more dominant by the platforms than AOL or CompuServe ever were. And so, of course, you can set up things inside social media, and lots of companies have done that. But we know, Zynga for me is one of the stories. Zynga used to be very successful, right? And they were essentially taxed out. Exactly, and they were taxed out of existence by Facebook because they became too successful. And then they were trying to do things outside of the walled garden, and then then it basically collapsed. And so imagine what kind of innovations we could be getting if we were actually able to not be under the threat of a platform that taxes you out of existence. And I think this is the Fediverse has this tension between being very open sourcey and non-commercial and anti-capitalist on one end, and then you have the opportunities, the business opportunities in a open network, and the tension has to be resolved at some point. But what is clear that there is a ton of opportunities on all levels here, and I think this is where it would be very, very useful to attract more people who see those.
So this is a great segue, because you have tools for this.
Oh, you're right. So we got off the subject.
So what?
Talk about the history.
So you have which website should we look at first? Because you have there's FediTest, Fediverse Developer Network. Let's talk about those.
Let me attach to what I said earlier how I got into this. Okay, so we learned something back in the days about how these kind of open networks have to be. I hesitate to say governed, but if you have an open network, a decentralized network, the question is who's in it and how do these people interact? Because if they don't interact with each other, then you don't have a network because nothing interoperates, nothing ever works. Right. There's this tension between if you have an entirely centralized system, it's really easy. You have one guy, Mark Zuckerberg, who says this is how we shall do it, and this is how it works. But in a decentralized network, you don't have this. In fact, disagreement is one of the strengths of a decentralized network, because only if you disagree can innovation happen in different directions.
Yes.
Right? Not everybody. No. Right? So the question is, how do you govern this? How do you organize this? And a lot of the projects that you mentioned that I'm involved in, one way or another, are an attempt to put some things into place that it can get organized without centralizing it. That's really what the common theme is. And I don't know whether this is the right pieces, but when an opportunity shows up, then I basically have been stepping up and trying to do that.
I literally was talking to my community the other day about just this. Like everyone looks at the big tech companies as such amazing innovators.
Hmm.
And I argue that the big tech companies probably innovated a little bit, like Google. Google's known for search. Everything else they bought or they killed. Google
Hmm.
has killed more innovation. Facebook has probably killed more innovation that is not financially sound for them. Like I understand their point, but like this is where the Fediverse comes in. Again, I can make something so totally randomly weird and have, for let's go for small Facebook numbers, a couple thousand people. But to you and me, a couple thousand people matters, right? Like,
Yes.
and the next person that comes through can see that, and then they can innovate on that, and they can innovate on that. And these walled gardens are so closed off and so locked down that any ideas that might have had a successful chance has already been, as you said, squashed and consumed or just killed.
And they also cannot really do this because if you're, let's say, Instagram and you have 2 billion or whatever the number of users is, right, you practically cannot really change the product very much because you
Right.
cannot move
Yep.
2 billion people from one place to another,
Yep.
or you cannot build solutions that are more specific to the needs of one particular subgroup. And this is one of the really fascinating things to me. There is really very, very few product categories anywhere that are where we say one product serves the same 2 billion people equally well. If you think
Mm-hmm.
of cars, right? We
Yeah.
have
Yeah. Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds of car models. Each one is a slightly different because it serves one particular customer slightly better than some other.
Yep.
And this is why we have all these different car models. But in social media, we don't have this at all. And it makes no sense, right? Because my needs are slightly different than your needs. And I
Yep.
should be able to have software that I should be able to find a vendor or a project who specializes in making me happier,
Yeah.
right? I would
And
actually, and this is, I think, one of the things about how to pay for this. I would pay for functionality that solves my problem better. I
yeah.
don't really pay for functionality that doesn't solve my problem very well. Like commercial social media does not solve my problem very well at all because it's full of ads and I hate it.
Yeah.
So I would like to pay for some other products, but it doesn't
No.
really exist.
Absolutely. And I think this is one of the reasons why whenever one of the big companies is like, we made this new UI that you're going to love, and everyone hates it because there will be a couple of people that absolutely do love it and it's more intuitive, but the rest,
Yeah,
it's not, right? And I think that that's a huge issue or a huge thing. And again, the Fediverse allows you to pick and choose your own
exactly.
models. One of the anecdotes that I had from college was in one of the marketing classes. They talk about, it's like one of the big pasta sauce places, Ragu or Prego or something like that. Like they assign someone, find the perfect pasta sauce that everyone will love. And after like tons and tons and tons of research, they came back and they said, there is no perfect pasta sauce. There is, however, perfect pasta sauces. Like you can have a
Right.
range. And that's one of the reasons we see
Exactly.
like, honey baked ham Doritos and things like that, right? Because they'll find like,
Exactly. And let's take this back. What an opportunity for social media, right? In
yeah,
all markets, okay, we have a ton of pasta sauces and a ton of cars, and we have a ton of, I don't know what we have. We have a ton of everything, okay?
yeah,
And you can pick exactly what you want. But in social media, in a technology, we generally do not. And I think that the reason why that has been is because of economies of scale and the network effects have been so dominant in the way these technologies have been adopted. But now Facebook or Meta is essentially has reached anybody on the planet who is ever going to do social media. There are no more
mm-hmm.
users to be had, right?
Yep,
Now, what's the next step here? Just making the same product for more users isn't going to work.
right,
So we have to diversify. We have to let the innovation bloom again. And it coming back to my project. So what I
yeah,
figured is there's a bunch of bits and pieces that are needed for doing that. So
mm-hmm.
FediForum, and that's the reason you invited me was when this whole Twitter disaster started to happen, and it looked like there was an opportunity for the decentralized stuff to get a new shot in the arm. I called up my friend Kalia, who I've known from Identity World for 20 years. She's been running this unconference, IW, for 20 years. And he said, we could do something similar for this social media thing. Should we try it out? And the primary reason why is that people can meet each other and find each other.
Yes.
That's the number one feedback we've been getting for FediForum, how it is useful. It's that people meet other people who think like them, and they're having these intense discussions and unconference, which means that the attendees get to talk a lot and interact a lot. And all these projects that come out, we have on our website, we have in our section of the projects that have been spun out at FediForum. And this is the kind of thing you need in a decentralized environment. People who are interested in the same subject have to be able to find each other. They're not working for the same company, right? They're not on the same continent. They have nothing really in common, but they're interested in the same subject. They have to find each other, and then they start projects together. And this is one of the the reasons why FediForum exists. I don't know. I'm speaking too much. I should let you ask questions. You're the
No. This is about you, and this is about the FediForum. I mean, what I'll say is when I started Fireside Fedi, like I don't like being in front of the camera. I've not until recently did I even turn on a webcam. But at this point, like I was seeing the same thing even on the Fediverse that I saw on Twitter and things like that, and other places where we're all just screaming at each other. Like, one of the guys, let's just say, because he's very front and center, Gargron or Dan's up, they make a decision and they just say, this is what we're doing for our project. And everyone kind of blows up at them, but they're not talking to them. They're talking past them. And then everyone else is like, yeah, I agree. And it's like, guys, we have an opportunity to talk to each other. You don't like what they're doing? That's fine. The code's open. Go take it and take it your own route. They've given you that opportunity. That's a blessing.
So in an unconference, right? The model is for those of your listeners who don't know what unconference is, right? The usual conference model is that the conference organizer gets a bunch of experts to stand on stage and pronounce how the world is from the stage, and everybody dutifully takes notes. And maybe you even get to ask a question. And this is, I think, the exact wrong model for this kind of thing that we are trying to build here in the early stages, at least. On unconference, the other way around. There is no preset agenda. People show up in the morning, and we together make an agenda based on what people want to talk about. And there's a process that can end in disaster if it isn't facilitated well. But if it's facilitated well, it works extremely well. And Kalia, my partner in this, is very good at this because we've been doing this for such a long time. And so we end up with an agenda that is driven by the participants, and the people go in the sessions that make sense to them. So if there's some kind of thing, some kind of issue that's dear to my heart today, instead of going to the conference program and say, I have to go to session 1, 3, and 9, and maybe they'll talk about this, right? I go like, my subject is this, and I want to have a session, and I'm actually not the expert on the subject. In fact, I don't have a solution at all to propose, but I know we need to make some progress on this. Who is with me? People show up, and you have these amazing discussions. And the thing that happens in unconference generally is you learn so much more than you would in any environment, including the people who are the supposed expert, because all of a sudden there is a bidirectional peer exchange of things, and all of a sudden the expert realizes, oh, maybe the problem was a bit more complicated than I thought, right? Or something like that.
I mean, I've been to those conferences too, and the worst is like when you're like, okay, well, there's two that I have to pick, this one or this one. They both sound, I'm going to go to that one, and you go there and you're like, this is terrible. I should have gone to the other one. Or as you said, like the person that's standing up there just giving the conference, like I'm an expert in System D, and like there was a gentleman that was like, this is how we did it. And I'm just like, no, don't tell people that. That's the wrong way to do it. And with this, we have an opportunity to have those conversations. We need to learn from each other. The world, even without this technology, is too complex. With the technology, is just even worse. I will say, and I told Johanne earlier, I was going to say this, that I found the FediForum through Mastodon, and I never take sponsorships or anything like that. I'm pretty sure everyone knows that, but I'm actually paying to go to the FediForum in order to see what it's about. Like, it seems awesome. Like there's going to be people that you're not going to agree with, and that's fine. That's how the world works. But if you can just talk to someone and get your ideas out, like maybe I'm not a software developer, but maybe we could talk to people and give ideas and all interact and have conversations. And that's, I talk about System D. I don't talk about it fondly, Eddie, but I talk about it a lot because it's what I knew. but yeah, no, I'm very excited when I found this out. And you teamed up with Humantrix, which handles the ticketing, who they give their money to like needy causes, right? Which is kind of what sold me on it too.
So basically, the technology so FediForum is an online event, and at some point we're going to do in-person events. But so far, there is not enough money in the Fediverse that people have budgets that they can use to travel somewhere. So and it's online is great because we get participants from literally all over the world. We have had people from Central Africa, which you would never expect, and South America, and so forth, and so forth. Anyway, so it's great that it's online, and we basically modeled it after the online version of IAW that I mentioned earlier that Kalia has been running for many years, that they came up with during the lockdowns in the pandemic. And because that there was some experience how to do this, and we basically said we used the exact same model. And so the software environment we use is a little bit cobbled together because there isn't a perfect piece of software around. We use this event platform called Kiko, which is run by a husband and wife team that basically is an integrated agenda, note-taking video environment that works really well for the kind of unconferences. It's a little clunky, and people sometimes tell us that, but it works better than the alternatives that we're aware of. And it doesn't have a registration part of it. We used to do Eventbrite, but it is really not a terribly good platform anymore. And so Humanitix is a much better thing in front. And so that has worked. And then what we do is, right, and so just to talk about FediForum a little bit more, so it's entirely unconference with the exception of a demo track in the morning. And what we do is we invite, this is something where we are doing editorial stuff that's not heavily driven, where we invite interesting software demos of interesting projects that people might not have seen or we know have interest in. We give them 5 minutes each to basically say, this is my project. And we do 5 minutes because even if I think, if anybody thinks this is not a demo for me, I'm not interested in that one, I can sit through 5 minutes. Okay, I'm not going to go around. 5 minutes is okay. And I can see a lot of demos in a very short amount of time. And then we encourage the people who do the demos to run sessions during the on-conference later so that you can go there and ask questions or interact with them further. And that model has worked very well. And so we've been publishing those demos on PeerTube. So we have, I think, probably the most complete library of software demos in the Fediverse around. We have had some firsts, like the Threads team came to FediForum and did the first public demo of the Activity Pub work at FediForum, which I know a lot of people don't care about because it's meta and so forth and so forth. But it's, I think, a bit of a win because it got us some exposure.
I think we all have a mistrust for Meta at this point, but the people that are coming there that are paid for by Meta, like I would imagine a lot of them are still passionate about the idea, and I think that's great. And to be able to talk to people like that and flat out tell them, like, you work for a company that a lot of us don't trust anymore. So if this is going to work, you kind of need to rebuild those bridges, right? You said you had there's demos and session notes and demo videos. Yeah, I'll have to check those out and link all of those. We don't have too much time left. I've been loving this conversation. So what's Dazzle Labs?
Oh, okay. So there's a bunch of other projects here. So Dazzle Labs is my company, basically a little startup. We are currently helping a few organizations trying to figure out what to do about this social media environment. It's an early market. There aren't a whole lot of companies yet to really look at this, except for some pioneers. But I hope this becomes something that people can pick up the phone and say, there's this new thing, tell me what I should be doing here in this market. And we're going to support this over time with some technology in order to let them build what they need to do there.
I love this because I've thought about, like, how does one do this? And I'm not an entrepreneur, which clearly you are, but like, I remember the 90s, like, no one really, even when it got into my hands, no one really knew what the internet was. It wasn't until you started watching the news. Yes, people watched the news back then. And they're like, what is the internet? And then all of a sudden companies are like, hey, we don't know what this is. It sounds interesting. It's a way for us to talk to people. Let's find someone that does know about it and
Exactly.
can set it up. And this seems like a great idea. This is that initial step into getting people that don't know what it is, don't know how to do it, and stepping them into it.
And then also do projects based on that one, because the next thing I want to do as an organization is I want some advice, and then I want to have some kind of idea of what I want to do. But then I'm going to do a project, and I'm not going to do this by myself. I'm going to do a project with somebody who actually knows this better than I have anybody on staff doing that. And so that's where you want to take this. So that's a nascent effort because the market is still very, very young. And then, if you go through some of the other things that's sort of related, the Fediverse Developer Network that I helped start was actually a side effect of FediForum, where a bunch of people said, we should really connect our developers better so they can interact with each other more, and solve problems together. If my software doesn't work with your software, where exactly is the problem? And so it mostly at this point it's a bunch of GitHub repos for shared artifacts, and actually several, but one pretty active matrix group, and we have like 200 something people on it that are debating the finer points of ActivityPub implementations and so forth. So this has been useful. And there will also hopefully be a way of doing shared artifacts that are not belong to any one particular project, but are relevant for the entire network, right? Because and testing is one of those examples. How do you make sure that there's somewhere in the order of about 100 different ActivityPub implementations around? How do you possibly QA this? Right, and the answer is today nobody really knows. As a developer, I cannot test against 99 other applications, each of which takes me an afternoon just to install. Right, that doesn't really work. And so, test cases and test environments is something that is reasonably housed under such a commons. Or I'm thinking of it as a commons. The way, like Orstrom talked about the commons, a shared resource for a community. That's what the development network wants to be. And one of the projects in this is Fedi Test, basically to build a test framework, test cases, for which we got some funding out of NLNet, and hope to get some more.
NLNet is everywhere, man.
Yes.
They're amazing.
Well, they have been single-handedly funding the Fediverse, basically. So, and they're great people, and they want to do all the right things. I hope they get more money from the EU. But so the common infrastructure, that's Fedi Test, and it's sort of within this overall environment of we need to keep things decentralized, but there's also things that are common affect everybody. Testing is one of them. Branding would be another one. Certain user experience stories we should be harmonizing across the entire Fediverse, because the users are terribly confused, right? Yes. There's so many things where everybody is differently for no good reason, and we should at least have a place where these conversations can be had, and then some common courses of action can come out. And sometimes we have had that in the matrix group, which is good. So it all sort of hangs together in a way. Right, but what the traditional way would be to do this would be that I would, let's say, put on my commercial entrepreneurial hat and say, I'm going to be Dazzle Labs, and I am going to create this develop ecosystem around my platform, right? And we're going to solve all these things within that, think like the Microsoft Developer Network or something like that. But of course, that would be completely wrong for a decentralized network.
Right.
If the Microsoft Developer Network model doesn't work, what does work?
Yeah. No, and that's the easy way too. It is so much easier when you're already inside your environment. Like you said, now you have to account for 100 other different environments that can interact with yours. And it's how do you...
And that's today, right? This network grows and there's more innovation, so that the number 100 is the lower bound. Right?
Yeah. That's amazing. This is I'm blown away, Johannes. This is great. Thank you so much for doing all this. This is
Well, I mean, I want this. You know, the yeah, one of the things you asked me earlier is, why am I doing this? And
Yeah.
ultimately it boils down to we have to build the world that we want to live in. I mean, we can't just basically sit there and say it's all terrible and not do anything about it. And so I have
So
no
what
patience
does
for those people.
so what does the Fediverse mean to you?
Well, it's basically, I mean, for me, there's more narrow and more broader definitions, and right, and let me take a broader and a sort of
Yeah.
future pointing version of this one. I think the world has to find a better way of how to communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what it boils down to. And it is not just communicate as in I say something and you say something, but it is a broader thing where we share ideas and we share reasonings and construct the truth together so we can move forward. Right? As opposed to yelling at each other and say, this will increase the budget deficit, and somebody else says, no, it will not, which is not productive from my perspective. But what about we figure out what the actual truth is here? And even if we have collected all the arguments,
Yeah.
and then we still disagree, we can at least communicate to the rest of the world why we disagree and
Yep.
what the point is, right? And then we can move
Yep.
forward. And so there is a question of how do we communicate and what's the software that are doing so. And I think what we have at the Fediverse is and I'm using this in a very broad term. I'm not using it in terms of ActivityPub only or anything like this. I do not know what the underlying protocols are going to be for this vision. It might be ActivityPub. It might be a conglomerate of 100 different protocols that are bridged or different subnets have, parts of the network have different features. On that level, it doesn't really matter. The question is, can you and I communicate? So for me, the Fediverse is the network where you and I can communicate the way you want.
Yeah.
Right.
I love that.
And so for me, so I have a very broad vision. So if you can say, you of course point out that would include say instant messaging, or it would include
Matrix,
email.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh yeah.
Right? For me, that it's all what we currently have a historically grown, disjointed environment. Some of that is because it was built on certain protocols like SMTP. So we have email as something that's separate from other forms of communication. But that has only historical reasons from my perspective. From a user's perspective, this makes no sense. From a user perspective, I want to talk to you.
Right.
And I want the tool to do so. No, I do not want to think whether this is LinkedIn or email.
Yes.
I want to talk to
you. Right. Yeah, you don't care. That's one of the ways I've explained to people is you don't care how you consume your media as long as you can get the media that you want, right? Like that's
right.
That's I try to explain to my wife. I set up like Mastodon and all these other things because I'm trying to help her get into it. And I was like, pick whichever one you like, and we'll get you what you want to see. And she's like, well, but I like this over here and that over there. I was like, dear, all of that's connected. We can get that all in one app. And it's like I love that because again, she's not like you said. They don't care. It's a tool for you and me. It matters more, right? We see the underpinnings. We see what can and can't do.
Yes, and I mean, as a technologist, obviously, we deal with the tiny details of this protocol and that protocol, right?
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, that is one layer. As a user, you really don't want to care. I mean, think of this one, right?
True, yeah.
So here's a use case. I know that a friend and we talked about something. I'm trying to find this conversation. Now I go over, where was this? Was this on Signal? Was this on email? Was this on some kind of social media? What kind of insanity is this?
Yes,
right?
I've had that.
Why can't I go to one place and say, I talked to my friend and here's what we said? Right? And
or just looking, like looking up a link. Yeah, you want it, someone sent you an amazing link and you're like, where is that link? I need to share it. It's like, let me go check my matrix. It's not there. Let me go check my text. It's not there. Let me go check my email. Nope. Discord. Nope. Exactly. Like, yeah, I think we've all been there.
But now what the Fediverse does and promises is that we can connect these islands.
Yep.
And once we connect them, then all of a sudden a lot of this stuff can be smoothed over and it's not relevant anymore. And we can pick the applications that make sense for us to connect to that network. So that's for me what the Fediverse is.
Yeah. And I will say for those people that are out there, and I'll admit it as well, like I'm on GoToSocial. It does not work fully with some platforms. I cannot pull PeerTube videos into my go-to social right now. It's young. The Fediverse is a baby. Like, you're seeing the way that the internet was at the very start of the internet. Like,
Yes.
and you have the opportunity to ride along with it or wait until it's more mature. It's also up to you. I've told people this about open source technology before, is it's there. It's free for you to use. It's free for you to not to use. It's up to you. And at least I think with folks like yourself and Dan and Gargaron and Evan and Christine and all those pushing it, like, it's going to be there, like, in some form or another. It's going to be here. It's not.
So I have a word of caution there, which is that we thought this before.
Yeah.
And it didn't go that way, right? And
That's
so
true.
there is, and I think it is very, very important to understand the lessons of why it didn't work last time around. Okay.
That's fair.
And then, basically build in the structures. And I think, the biggest issue at this point is we need to figure out how to fund this entire ecosystem at the level that it needs to be funded, right? Because the donation model only goes that far, and it goes about as far as we've gotten it so far. I think maybe, you can maybe double it again, but it is sort of that amount in that ballpark. And if the centralized competition, regularly spends tens of billions of dollars on R&D, then you know that you cannot get very far in comparison. And we need to figure out how to do this. So from my perspective, the overall question is, how do we fund the system so it doesn't go sideways and it doesn't get captured by special interests as commercial media, social media has been, but it still provides the amount of funding that is necessary that people can actually make a living out of it. Because if they can't make a living out of it, then sooner or later everything collapses, because people have children and the wife says, why aren't we going on a vacation? I mean, this is not doable, except the margin.
Do you have the answer to this question, or you're still?
That is probably at least another 1 hour recording. I don't think the answer, but I think there is some points, and in one sentence I would say, look at what every one of us pays for the mobile phone bill every month. And compare the utility of the mobile phone, which is very high, but the utility of your mobile phone compared to the utility of the Fediverse. And now tell me which percentage of your mobile phone bill in terms of monthly expense would be justifiable allocated to your social media experience if it worked the way you want it to work. I think the money is there. We have to basically change some minds in terms of that this money actually needs to be spent. And social media compared to social phone, cell phone networks is fairly cheap, right? You can get away with probably somewhere in the order of $1 or something per user per month in terms of funding this. So I think it's doable. We just have to do it.
So what do you think that a regular person on the Fediverse can do to help?
So it depends on interests, obviously, and expertise. What the Fediverse needs is more people who are not hardcore protocol developers. We have plenty of those, and part of the reason why we have the software in the state that we have it in is because it has been driven that way. We need people who understand usability. We need people who understand emotional appeal. We need people who bring content creators into the Fediverse, that are the kinds of people that others want to follow, right? We need people who make the case to, for example, civic society organizations, that some of the money that they're spending on good causes should be spent on communication that is not susceptible to fake news as much as others. Right. So, for example, we have had largely no funding from the usual funding organizations that invest in all sorts of good causes, but the Fediverse hasn't gotten any of it. And I do not know exactly why. The people who have talked and tried to get money generally have reported that they have been met with incomprehension as to what they're pitching. All right. So we need to figure out how to tell the story that the people with the money say, "Oh, I understand it, and I want to part with my money." And storytelling is something that you do not expect a bunch of engineers to have. So there is a lot of things that can be done for normal people. And and the first thing that I would say and that's it's a pitch for FediForum, but the place that I would recommend to do is show up at FediForum. Ticket prices are as low as $2, so everybody can afford that. And hang out with a bunch of people and see who you like and what topic you like, and figure out what can be done there. I mean, that's what it is for, right? It can be done differently, but you get at FediForum, you get probably as broad a view as to what's happening as any other place, or more so than any other place. And so that's one of the reasons why we have it.
No, and that's one of the things that I've come to find too, is that like you can have the greatest platform in the world. We've seen it time and time again, where there is someone that is the first and they've become entrenched. And it doesn't matter the technology you have. If you don't have people, you don't have a platform, because these are all social media platforms, right? And that's what I keep telling folks. Like, again, one of the reasons, not that I'm good or interesting, but one of the reasons that I started streaming on Owncast, I want to see others stream on Owncast. You can't expect people just to start streaming with no one watching. I don't care. I don't make a living off of doing it. I'll be more than happy to do it. And then I'm like, okay, well, let's set up a PeerTube and start recording those. I don't think my stuff's interesting, but maybe someone does, and it's still more content out there. And that's why I started this. Like, I absolutely agree with you there. We need to get people to start at least paying attention and saying, you know what, especially on something like PeerTube, you can just copy your YouTube. Like, there's not, like, get it set up, and then you don't have to worry about it, man. And you're giving your people a choice. I love that. Like, just because you agree with me is why I love it, though. So.
But it's one of the nice things is that we are again at the stage in technology where innovation is much more possible. Like 10 years ago, it was not as possible as it is today, because we have more open networks, and everybody knows by now that the big technology platforms are not out to do good things for you, right? Whether you want to use the word enshittification or not, but everybody knows this by this point. That I've been telling a story for a very long time, that they are not out there to do the right thing for you, whether it's on data privacy or on and all of these things. But for a very long time, you meet with incomprehension. People don't realize this because they have the new tool and you can do all these things. But now we are at the point again where they have had the new tools long enough that they have seen some of the downsides, and you can't open up your newspaper, right, without all the headlines screaming the technology is really bad for you, which means it creates this would have been unheard of 10 years ago or 15 years ago, right? And so the opportunity now exists that didn't exist before, which is why I am so hopeful that we can build something useful here.
I'm super hopeful too, and I try to constantly have these conversations with folks, and I'm like, have you tried Owncast? And like, so often people are like, no, you can't do what Twitch does. I'm like, there is nothing special that they do that you cannot. I've done it. I've hosted, like I had a video showing Owncast streaming to like 70 or 80 plus open connections. They're like, well, the bandwidth would get insane. It's like, try it. Let's just try it. No. It's like, okay, well, I'll keep plugging away here. You whittle them down. But yeah, I'm hopeful as well. That's what we have to do to keep moving forward, right?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, now for the real reason I asked Johannes here is to give you an opportunity to win a prize of a lifetime. This is the real. Now we're serious. Our prize today is a bucket full of fresh internet packets directly from the internet packet mine. And
are they UDP packets or?
If they were, you wouldn't get them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah, okay. So there's guaranteed delivery. Now I know what it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we thought about a ticket to space, but since the Earth is hot dog shaped and it's not flat, everyone knows the Earth is not flat. It's a hot dog shape. Figured that you could just go to the tip and jump up, and then you'd be in space already. So we went with the internet packet bucket, something like that. Yeah. So you ready for your quiz, Johannes?
Okay.
All right. Favorite movie and why is it Spaceballs?
So favorite movie by the Spaceballs. So I'm not a big movie person. I
Oh,
haven't had a TV in a long time, and I don't know. Spaceball, I don't know. I think I go for Life of Brian as a favorite
okay.
movie.
Yeah. Monty Python. My favorite Monty Python was Holy Grail. The Life of Brian's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll take that. C, Rust, Go, or Java?
So it depends on the job.
Oh, he's a
I
wise man. Yeah, smart.
It's like I have written stuff in a whole bunch of languages, and not everything is a hammer. I mean, not everything a nail.
Yeah.
So I can
That's
find reasons for all three of them.
all right. That's so, and I think I already know the answer to this one. Which would you prefer to look at? Still pictures or movies? Or videos, I guess.
I'd really love a 3D headset that actually worked.
Oh, there's rumor we might have one by the end of the year again from Valve, but who knows?
I don't know. I think there's so many things that could be done that nobody's doing, and I don't know why.
Yeah,
But that's another story for some other time.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
No, like my thought immediately goes to like, can you be a car mechanic from home?
Okay.
Like or surgery, like halfway around the world, right? Like that, like has
That,
so
that,
much
that is very
potential.
that is very utilitarian, as in very very good use cases. But I think somebody, for example, could find a mix of what today is music videos and live performances.
That'd be
That
cool.
is
Yeah,
a new art form where you can sort of be in the middle.
yeah,
Um, and I think there's something to be done. I mean, this is not my field, but I have
yeah.
enough of a classical music background that I realize when people innovated in the past, that sometimes with a new medium, sometimes really interesting things happened. And I think the headsets could do this, but I don't think anybody has really done that. So I would really want that.
That's VR headsets always feel like another one of the in 10 years it'll get here kind of a thing, but
True, true.
got
I
it.
mean, it is a really hard technical problem, but
Yes,
one of these
yes,
days.
yeah. So what does an alternative Johannes do for a living?
An alternative, Johannes.
Hmm.
What alternate universe, alternate
Yeah,
career path?
yeah.
Oh, well, when I was about 19, the decision path was should I become an engineer or a classical musician? And I'm
Oh,
very happy that I became an engineer rather than a classical musician because if I look like the people who I made music with at the time, particularly the ones that were better than me, where it ended up, I think the engineer had the better business model.
I think I think all of us here, not having heard you play, you might play beautifully, but I think all of us here are very happy you chose the engineering path as well. What did you play?
I played both piano and the violin, and I did
Okay.
go to the next
Those
city conservatory for 3 years after high school
I mean,
as an extra student, as an outside student. Yeah.
I don't know anything about classical music. I've never played an instrument in my life, but piano and violin seem like two of the most difficult to play just because the amount of classical composers and players probably want to play piano or violin.
Long story. It's like so many things. Each has their own difficulties.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. So I did reach out to an alternate universe, Johannes, and I have a
Okay.
special phone for that. Don't worry about how it works. And he said he spends his night folding stamps into other stamps and then sells those stamps to stamp origami stamp collectors. So if you never know, you might be able to
I used
find
to have
that.
a stamp collection a very long time ago.
Oh, see? There you go. Next question. In ear, and again, I think I know this one, but in ear, over ear headphones. Yeah. That's what I have.
So these ones, I have these ones. Have worked really well for video conferencing. But I do have over earbuds for airplane flights. I never listen to any music on the plane, but the noise canceling part is really good for my
mental
for
health
the jet lag that I end up with afterwards.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. So then the last question, as usual, as per Fireside Fedi history, is I'm going to send it to you telepathically, and I'll let you know once I sent it. I mean, not that I have to let you know because you'll have gotten it, and then you could tell me the answer. So here comes. Okay, so what's your answer to that question?
Does it have to be so difficult?
It's it's always everyone says that. It's a rough question. I'm sorry.
I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, okay. That's a good, I'll go with that. All right. Well, congratulations. You got every answer either correct or incorrect. Good job. Okay. So I went ahead and I sent those internet packets over to you right now. So hopefully they're coming in your line. If you didn't get them after we're done, go ahead and unplug the cable and dump it out. They do get stuck sometimes. You probably know that though. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I have a broom here somewhere. Yeah.
That brings us to the conclusion of another Fireside Fedi. Remember, the Fediverse is built by us for all of us. That means it needs your help as well. And I need your help. Let me know in the comments or on Matrix or Mastodon or any other sites who you'd like to hear from. If you have any constructive criticisms, if you have any suggestions. I'm not normally one to ask you to boost VODs and stuff like that, but let me know how I'm doing. Let me know if you want to see something else. There's no algorithm to the Fediverse. So the way that we share things is by sharing things, right? So let folks know. Again, if there's something you want to do, I've been reaching out to a lot of folks, and sometimes I hear back, sometimes I don't. Maybe ping your local developer or someone of interest that you want to see, and hook them up, and let's see if we can help out. Also, don't forget to tip your local sysadmin that's running your instance or whatever else. Everyone needs to do their part to pitch in. Thank you, Johannes, for joining me, and thank you very much for the FediForum and all the amazing work that you do. I look forward to talking with you again on April 1st and 2nd, which it's April Fool's Day. I realized that. That caught me for a second. I was like, is it real? I think it's real.
Yeah, we wanted to do it in March, but it didn't work out for scheduling reasons. So that's the best we could do. We're trying to do it every 6 months.
I didn't know that either. So, but everyone go check out FediForum.org. So
thank you. Well, thanks for having me. Good conversation.
Thank you.
And I wish you lots of success with future interviews and conversations.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I mean, ideally for me, someone else, does a way better job, and then I can just watch them, because this is not where I'm comfortable. But hey, we got to get there all together, one step at a time. And thank you to all the Fedizens for joining me. You're all wonderful, beautiful people. Remember, hate's never the way. Love is love. People over platforms, protocols over platforms. And let's put social back in social media. So thank you all very much.
Sounds good.
Have a great day.